This is a true story, and it happened when I was about 6 years old. You know how in a really quiet room, if you press your ear against a pillow, you can hear your own heartbeat? Well, as a kid, that muffled, rhythmic beat sounded exactly like soft footsteps on a carpeted floor. So almost every single night, just as I was about to drift off to sleep, I'd hear these footsteps. They would rip me right back to consciousness, absolutely terrified. My entire childhood, I lived with my mother in a pretty nice neighborhood that was sort of in a transitional phase. We were one of the families with lower economic means moving in. We lived in one of those houses you see being hauled in two pieces on the interstate, but my mom took really good care of it. Our neighborhood was surrounded by woods, and I'd spend my days playing and exploring in them. But at night, like things often do for a kid, they took on a much more sinister feeling. That, combined with the large crawl space under our house, filled my mind with imaginary monsters and inescapable scenarios that would just consume my thoughts whenever the footsteps woke me up. I told my mom about the footsteps, but she just said I was imagining things. I kept insisting, so one time she actually blasted my ears with water from a turkey baster just to calm me down, since I thought that might help. Of course, it didn't. Despite all the creepiness and the nightly footsteps, the only other weird thing that ever happened was that every now and then, I'd wake up on the bottom bunk of my bed, even though I'd gone to sleep on the top. This wasn't too strange, since I'd sometimes get up in the night to use the bathroom or get a drink, and I could vaguely remember just climbing back into the bottom bunk. Since I'm an only child, it didn't really matter. This would happen maybe once or twice a week, and waking up on the bottom bunk was never that scary. But one night, I didn't wake up on the bottom bunk. I remember hearing the footsteps, but I must have been too far gone to be fully woken up by them. And when I did wake up, it wasn't from a sound or a nightmare. It was because I was cold. Really, really cold. When I opened my eyes, I saw stars. I was in the woods. I sat up immediately, trying to figure out what was going on. My first thought was that I was dreaming, but that didn't feel right. Then again, neither did me actually being in the woods. There was a deflated pool float right in front of me, one of those ones shaped like a shark. This only added to the surreal feeling. After a while, it seemed like I just wasn't going to wake up because I wasn't asleep. I stood up to get my bearings, but I didn't recognize these woods at all. I played in the woods by my house all the time, so I knew them like the back of my hand. If these weren't the same woods, how was I ever going to get out? I took a step and a shooting pain went through my foot, knocking me right back to where I had been lying. I'd stepped on a thorn. By the light of the moon, I could see they were everywhere. I checked my other foot, but it was fine. In fact, so was the rest of me. I didn't have another scratch on me, and I wasn't even that dirty. I cried for a little bit, and then I stood back up. I didn't know which way to go, so I just picked a direction. I resisted the urge to call out, since I wasn't sure I wanted to be found by whoever or whatever might be out there with me. I walked for what felt like hours. I tried to walk in a straight line, course correcting when I had to take detours, but I was just a scared kid. There were no howls or screams, and only once did I hear a noise that truly frightened me. It sounded like a crying baby. I think now it was probably just a cat, but at the time, I panicked. I ran, veering in different directions to avoid big thickets of bushes and fallen trees. I was paying super close attention to where I stepped, because by that point, my feet were in pretty bad shape. I paid too much attention to where I was stepping, and not enough to where those steps were actually leading me. Not long after hearing that cry, I saw something that filled me with a kind of despair I haven't experienced since. It was the pool float. I was only 10 feet from where I had woken up. This wasn't magic or some supernatural space-bending phenomenon. I was just lost. Up until that moment, I'd thought more about getting out of the woods than how I got into them. But being right back at the beginning caused my mind to swim. I wasn't even sure that these were my woods. I had only been hoping they were. Had I run in a huge circle, or did I just get turned around and start making my way back? How was I going to get out? At the time, I thought the North Star was just the brightest star in the sky, so I looked up, found the brightest one, and started following it. Eventually, things started to look more familiar. When I saw the ditch, a dirt ditch my friends and I would have dirt-clawed wars in, I knew I had made it out. By then, I was walking really slowly because my feet hurt so much, but I was so happy to be close to home that I broke into a light jog. When I actually saw the roof of my house over a neighboring, lower-set house, I let out a little sob and ran faster. I just wanted to be home. I had already decided I wouldn't say anything because I had no idea what I could possibly say. I would just get back in the house somehow, clean myself up, and get in bed. My heart sank as I rounded the corner and my house came fully into view. Every single light in the house was on. I knew my mom was up, and I knew I would have to try and explain where I had been, but I couldn't even figure out where to start. My run became a jog, which then became a walk. I saw her silhouette through the blinds. And even though I was worried about how to explain everything, at that point, it didn't matter. I walked up the couple of steps to the porch, put my hand on the doorknob, and turned it. Right before I could push the door open, two arms wrapped around me and pulled me back. I screamed as loud as I possibly could, "Mom, help me, please." The feeling of being so close to safety and then being physically pulled away from it filled me with a kind of dread that is, even after all these years, just indescribable. The door I had just been torn away from opened, and a flash of hope shot through me. But it wasn't my mom. It was a man, and he was enormous. I thrashed around and kicked at the shins of the person holding me, while also trying to get away from the person who had just come out of my house. I was scared, but I was also furious. Let me go. Where is she? Where's my mom? What did you do to her? As my throat stung from screaming and I was drawing in another breath, I became aware of a sound that had been there longer than I had realized. "Honey, please calm down. I've got you." It sounded like my mom. The arms loosened and set me down. As the man approaching me blocked out the porch light with his head, I noticed his clothes. He was a cop. I turned to face the voice behind me and saw that it really was my mom. Everything was okay. I began to cry, and the three of us went inside. "I'm so glad you're home, sweetie. I was worried I'd never see you again." By that point, she was crying too. "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't know what happened. I just wanted to come home." "I'm sorry. It's okay. Just don't ever do that again." I'm not sure me or my shins could take it. A little laughter broke through my sobs and I smiled a bit. "Well, I'm sorry for kicking you, but why'd you have to grab me like that?" "I was just afraid that you'd run away again." I was confused. "What do you mean?" "We found your note on your pillow," she said, and pointed at a piece of paper that the police officer was sliding across the table. I picked it up and read it. It was a running away letter. It said that I was unhappy and never wanted to see her or any of my friends again. The police officer exchanged a few words with my mom on the porch while I just stared at the letter. I didn't remember writing a letter. I didn't remember anything about any of this. But even if I sometimes went to the bathroom at night and didn't remember, and even if I could have gone into the woods on my own, even if all that could have possibly been true, the only thing I knew for sure at that moment was, this isn't how you spell my name, ... I didn't write this letter.